The alarm klaxons were still wailing when Kira Ashford burst through the emergency bulkhead into Station Aurora Prime's central engineering bay. Emergency lighting bathed everything in hellish red, and the massive fusion core's containment readings painted a picture that made her stomach drop. 59 hours, 37 minutes, called Ryle Solarith from the primary control station, his silver-blue Eternian features stark under the emergency lighting. That's how long we have before cascade failure reaches critical mass. Kira pulled up the core diagnostics on her tablet, her trained eyes racing through the data streams. 3 weeks as the station's human engineering consultant had taught her to read Eternian systems displays, but she'd never seen readings like this. Christ, she breathed. The magnetic containment bottles are losing integrity in sequence. It's like a cascade failure, but the pattern's all wrong. The Galactic Engineering Council's best minds have been analyzing this for 18 hours, Zeph said, his precise accent clipping each word. Their conclusion is unanimous. Controlled evacuation is the only option. We abandon the station, establish a perimeter at safe distance, and hope the explosion dissipates before reaching inhabited systems. Hope? Kira looked up sharply. Ryle, this thing goes critical. It's not just the station. The energy release will destabilize the hyperspace junction. 3 star systems, 47 billion people. I am aware of the stakes. Ryle's pale hands moved across the control interface with mechanical precision. Which is why the Council's evacuation order has been approved. Transport ships are already docking. Kira stared at the fusion core through the reinforced viewing port. The elegant spiral of contained stellar fire that normally pulsed with steady rhythm now writhed like something in pain, magnetic fields, fluctuating wildly as containment bottles failed in sequence. What if they're wrong, she said quietly. Excuse me. The Council, what if they're wrong about this being unsalvageable? Ryle turned from the controls, his violet eyes reflecting the emergency lighting. Kira, these are the galaxy's foremost fusion specialists. Eternian engineers who design systems like this, Caltharian physicists who understand stellar mechanics better than anyone alive, Zephyrian theorists whose mathematical models are all based on the assumption that fusion cores fail in predictable patterns. Kira was already moving toward the diagnostic station, her fingers flying over the interface. But look at this cascade sequence. It's not random degradation, there's a rhythm to it. She pulled up the containment failure timeline and overlaid it with the station's structural resonance data. The pattern that emerged made her breath catch. Ryle, this isn't a fusion crisis. It's a harmonic resonance cascade. That is impossible. Eternian fusion cores are specifically designed to prevent harmonic interference. With Eternian structural frequencies, yeah. Kira was already pulling up the station's construction specifications. But Aurora Prime isn't purely Eternian architecture. It's a hybrid design, Eternian core systems, Caltharian hull materials, Zephyrian computational networks, and human habitat modules. She highlighted the structural data, showing how different building materials created overlapping resonance patterns throughout the station. The vibrations from the fusion core are hitting all these different frequencies, and instead of dampening each other out, they're amplifying. The whole station's becoming a tuning fork. Ryle studied the data, his expression shifting from skepticism to growing alarm. If you are correct, then conventional containment protocols will only accelerate the cascade. Exactly, every time the automatic systems try to stabilize one containment bottle, the harmonic feedback destabilizes 2 others. Kira felt the familiar rush of a complex engineering problem falling into place. We need to stop thinking about this as a fusion problem and start treating it as a structural harmonics issue. The Council's engineers have not considered this approach. Why would they? Eternian engineering is brilliant, systematic, precise, mathematically perfect. But human engineering, Kira smiled grimly. We're used to jury-rigging solutions for systems that were never designed to work together. Ryle was quiet for a long moment, studying both the data and Kira's face. What are you proposing? Controlled counter-resonance. Instead of fighting the harmonics, we use them. Kira began pulling up structural engineering protocols from her personal database. We deliberately introduce opposing frequencies at specific points around the station, create interference patterns that cancel out the cascade. That would require precise timing across 17 different structural points. The margin for error is basically non-existent, yeah. Maya was already calculating load distributions and frequency equations, but it's better than hoping 47 billion people survive a stellar-class explosion. She looked up at him, seeing the conflict written across his features. 3 weeks of working together had taught her to read his expressions, the way his violet eyes darkened when he was thinking, how his shoulders tensed when protocols conflicted with instinct. I need your help, she said quietly. I know the structural engineering, but you know these systems better than anyone. If we're gonna pull this off, I need someone who can coordinate 17 simultaneous adjustments with perfect timing. Kira, Ryle moved closer, close enough that she could see the flecks of silver in his violet eyes. If we attempt this and fail, we will have prevented evacuation for 59 hours. The death toll will be our responsibility. And if we don't try, 47 billion people die anyway. Kira met his gaze steadily. I've run the numbers 6 times, this can work. Ryle studied her face for another moment, then moved to the communications console. Engineering bay to bridge. Request immediate conference with Station Commander Velora. 10 minutes later, they were standing in the station's command center, surrounded by the controlled chaos of evacuation coordination. Commander Velora, a graying Eternian woman with the bearing of someone who'd made impossible decisions before, listened to Kira's proposal with the attention it deserved. Let me understand this correctly, Velora said when Kira finished. You want to halt evacuation and instead attempt an engineering solution that contradicts every recommendation from the Galactic Engineering Council. Yes, ma'am. Using structural harmonics principles that have never been tested on fusion containment systems. That's correct. Velora looked at Ryle. And you support this approach, Coordinator Solareth. I believe Kira's analysis is sound, Ryle said. The harmonic resonance pattern she identified explains the cascade behavior better than any conventional fusion failure model. Ma'am, Kira said, I know this sounds insane, but I've spent 12 years designing earthquake-resistant buildings on unstable worlds, dealing with structures that have to handle multiple conflicting forces simultaneously. This is the same problem, just bigger. Commander Velora was quiet for 30 seconds that felt like hours. Then, you have 58 hours, but evacuation continues until you can demonstrate measurable progress. The next 8 hours blurred together in a haze of calculations, structural modifications, and increasingly desperate coffee consumption. Kira found herself working more closely with Ryle than she ever had, their different approaches to engineering complementing each other in ways that surprised them both. Frequency Generator 7 is showing phase drift, Ryle reported from the master control station. Compensating, Kira adjusted the harmonic emissions from her position at the structural engineering console. Try again. Locked and stable. Kira, your calculations for the hull resonance dampening, they should not work according to standard harmonic theory. Standard harmonic theory assumes homogeneous materials and predictable load distributions. Kira wiped sweat from her forehead. Human engineering assumes everything's broken, and you have to make it work anyway. She glanced at him across the engineering bay, noting how his usual precise movements had adapted to the chaotic pace of crisis engineering. 3 weeks ago, he'd been politely skeptical of her unconventional approaches. Now he was anticipating her needs, adjusting systems configurations before she even asked. Next phase adjustment in 30 seconds, Ryle called. Kira watched her structural stress monitors, waiting for the precise moment when the harmonic patterns would align. Mark. 17 frequency generators across the station activated simultaneously, their combined output creating interference patterns that should, in theory, cancel out the resonance cascade, destroying the fusion core. For 10 seconds, nothing happened. Then slowly, the fusion core's chaotic writhing began to settle. Containment bottle integrity readings stabilized. The alarms finally went silent. Fusion core stable, Ryle announced, wonder creeping into his voice. Containment holding steady across all 17 bottles. Kira slumped against her console, exhaustion hitting her like a physical weight. Phase 1 complete. Now we just need to maintain the counter-resonance for 48 hours while the core rebalances. Kira, Ryle left his station and crossed to where she stood. What you just accomplished, it will revolutionize how we approach multi-system engineering failures. We accomplished, Kira corrected. I couldn't have done the timing coordination without you. Your precision made the difference between success and, she gestured vaguely at the fusion core, spectacular failure resulting in the deaths of billions. Pretty much, yeah. They stood there for a moment, the magnitude of what they'd just prevented settling over them. The engineering bay felt different now, not just because the alarms had stopped, but because something fundamental had shifted between them. Kira, Ryle said quietly, I need to tell you something. What's that? When you first proposed this solution, I thought you were either brilliant or completely insane. His violet eyes met hers. I have worked with many engineers over the years, Eternian, Caltharian, Zephyrian, all highly competent, all following established methodologies. But none of them would have seen the solution you saw. None of them would have been willing to risk everything on an approach that contradicted conventional wisdom. He stepped closer. Your mind works differently. You see connections where others see only separate systems. Kira felt her heart rate pick up, and not from the engineering crisis. Ryle, I know this complicates our professional relationship. Different species, station protocols, the fact that we will likely be working together for months while the Council studies your harmonic resonance methods. His voice dropped. But what happened here, what we accomplished together, suggests that some partnerships are worth the complications. When he kissed her, it felt like another engineering breakthrough, two different approaches finding a way to work in perfect harmony. 47 hours later, the fusion core achieved complete stability, and the harmonic counter-resonance system became standard protocol for all multi-species engineering installations. The Galactic Engineering Council officially designated Kira's approach as the Ashford-Solarith harmonic stabilization method, though Kira privately thought it should be called the holy shit that actually worked protocol. But for Kira, the real victory wasn't the engineering accolades or the lives saved, though those mattered immensely. It was discovering that the best solutions often came from combining different ways of thinking, whether in engineering or in matters of the heart. Standing in their shared workspace months later, watching Ryle efficiently coordinate a routine maintenance cycle using protocols that seamlessly blended Eternian precision with human adaptability, Kira smiled. Sometimes the most elegant engineering solutions were also the most unexpected ones. And sometimes the best partnerships were the ones that shouldn't work according to conventional wisdom, but somehow managed to save entire star systems anyway.